speaking of positions where we thought the Michigan method would take place, it has happened at backup quarterback. Now, we came out of fall camp thinking that Davis Warren had kind of pulled away in that battle, the two-man battle that we thought it was, maybe a third man in the mix with Alex Orji in there, but it was mostly between Davis Warren and Jack Tuttle, and haven't seen the backups a ton, but obviously the fourth quarters of these first two games haven't really gone well, have actually kind of been a disaster, if we're not mincing words here. Davis Warren has gotten in there. He's been 0 for 3 with an interception. Jaden Denegal got out there on Saturday. Was 1 for 1 for 35 yards, mostly just handing the ball off. And then Jack Tuttle, unfortunately, gets hurt after a rush for 14 yards. But this is not settled yet. And to a certain extent, I kind of get the vibe the coaching staff is a little surprised by that. But this is something that's going into week 3. And now there was the talk on Monday from Jim Harbaugh where it was actually supposed to be Jaden Denegal that got into the game first or after Jack Tuttle in this game on Saturday. And there was a mix up there with Mike Hart. But basically they're saying that Saturday's backup quarterback derby, whenever that takes place, if it takes place, you never know what happens, will be Jaden Denegal and Alex Orji. So do we have, I have some concerns about QB2 regardless of who's there because of the drop-off from JJ McCarthy. But this is something worth keeping an eye on because usually it's a battle between 2 guys. This is a battle between 4 guys right now, and that's kind of sketchy heading into conference play.
Yeah, that's my main concern basically is keeping JJ McCarthy healthy. And, he's by far he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and the drop off is significant. So Davis Warren, we were hopeful, we'd heard great things about him the last couple of years, all the coaches saying, he really slings it. But come game time, man, he just hasn't been ready. And you can't blame the offensive line. You can't blame anything else. He just looks shaky. So, And so when Jerome Moore was talking today about, hey, I want JJ McCarthy to get down when he's running. He says he's a hockey player and says, Coach, I want contact. You have to say, no, you need to get down, right? Or we're going to punish you and play your backup. No, not really. But you know what? He's got to get down. He's got to stay healthy because there's just that it could be a season ender for the team, not just for a kid if something were to happen to him. So need him to start taking that into account and be a little smarter there.
Yeah. No doubt. He lowered his shoulder on that one that he kept on the zone read. The quarterback draw, takes a hit, and then he took a couple hits mid-late third quarter, and even the TV broadcast guys were saying, once you see that, if you're Mike Hart, you may pull him out, and maybe that kind of sketched out Mike Hart. Mike Hart, by the way, made the mistake of putting in Davis Warren. So once we learned that today, my first thought is, okay, Davis Warren was probably thinking, I'm not playing today because the order was supposed to go. Jack Tuttle, Jaden Denegal, and maybe Alex Orji, he said. So Davis Warren, there's no way there was going to be time for him to get in the game. So I do I'll take, it still was a terrible throw. He's trying to fit that into Carmelo English. There's, a guy just dropping in zone coverage there. You can't do it, but maybe he thought he wasn't going in. So I'll take a little bit of the blame off of him there. But yeah, the fact that one guy hasn't separated, is not the best thing in the world. Now, at the same time, maybe they're all decent, from what they've seen in practice. Jack Tuttle started games in the Big Ten, so I was actually excited to see him out there. It's too bad he got hurt, and sounds like he's okay. But, yeah, I guess we'll kind of see where it goes. You got to keep J.J. McCarthy healthy, though.
Yeah, and Harbaugh said, more or less said, we have to see what we have on these 2 guys, Jaden Denegal, Alex Orji this weekend, because obviously, on one hand, we still don't know if Alex Orji is a quarterback long-term. Jaden Denegal is still kind of mostly an unknown. And this is really their last chance to sort of experiment with that because we've talked about this before and I won't linger on it too much. You're trying to see right now if there's a chance, even a sliver of a chance that if JJ leaves after this year, is his successor on the roster right now? And I don't know that it is. My gut says it's not, but this is your last chance to kind of get those guys out there and see what they can do. And obviously they'll have, a lot of practice reps, a lot of scout team reps coming up throughout the course of this season. But, if it becomes a case where Davis Warren's been in this program for a few years, Jack Tuttle has played college football for 100 years at this point. If it comes down to all things being equal, getting those guys equity, building equity in the future is I think probably, not, they're going to take things 1 week at a time, one game at a time. But I have to think that's also kind of in the back of their minds too.
Yeah, I think so. And you know what? When you think about backup quarterbacks too, and you think about starting quarterbacks in the future, is Davis Warren a guy that is going to lead you to a championship? I guess is the way that you're looking at it with this program now, isn't it? And true freshman, you know what? You have concerns anytime, even if it's a special true freshman. Look at JJ McCarthy coming in last year or 2 years ago rather, and playing behind Cade McNamara and had a role, but he wasn't ready to play right off the bat. And you can see the difference between JJ McCarthy now and JJ McCarthy then. So you've got the portal as well. There is no question and no doubt in speaking to people that Michigan will most likely explore the portal next year for another quarterback, unless JJ McCarthy were to come back for some reason, somehow. And, never say never. Right now he's playing at a first round level, right? We've seen, I think, some way too early projections having him as a first round pick. But with beyond that, there are going to be guys looking to move into a situation where they can play with a lot of talent. And regardless of what some of the naysayers on the fort tell you or other message boards, there's a lot of talent returning to this team next year. If you look at the guys coming back on the defensive line, in the secondary, on the offensive line, skill position players, and you're going to do the 1 more year fund. So I think that's the direction they'll go, and I think that's the direction they need to go.
Yeah, and you got to trust this staff too. But I mean, you go to the portal, and right now it looks like JJ is going to be in the NFL at this time next year. But you go to the portal, you try to get the Sam Hartman of the year. I mean, the Sam Hartman special, and according to reports, he turned down over $1 million from other programs to go to Notre Dame, where he thought he could win and be showcased and everything. Quarterbacks want to win, so I think that you're going to have to get a guy that'll probably turn down more money, but you can you can still lure him in by the opportunity to compete for championships, to be in a pro style system, to be developed by Kirk Campbell and Jim Harbaugh and everything else. So it's way down the road, but it's definitely something to consider when you look at these, basically Michigan's quarterback depth behind JJ, which hasn't been super impressive so far.
Well, before we move into a little more housekeeping here, I just want to talk about the rest of this roster, and do we see any position battles playing out that you think maybe are still kind of unsettled? We don't quite know what that cornerback depth chart looks like yet, with Will Johnson still out, Rod Moore still out at safety, but outside of the two groups that we just addressed, I don't have a lot of questions about where it is.
Yeah, just the corners is the one that I'm really concerned with, and who's going to step up. We know Will Johnson, the difference between Will Johnson and everybody else there is pretty massive too. Although the backups have been playing pretty well, it's hard to tell because of the level of competition. So, but yeah, I want to see who it's going to be. And it'll play out here. Again, you got another week here where you're going to get a lot of guys some playing time and a lot of capable bodies. And it's the good news is that they're getting a lot of guys a lot of time. So you're going to have some safeties back. I mean, Rod Moore, Will Johnson didn't play. Makari Page didn't play last week, and they still dominated. So pretty exciting, really, to think about how much better even that defense is going to be when those guys come back.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what we're waiting for. It's amazing that the defense was that dominant, 4 yards of play for the game, and that includes the fourth quarter where the backups, and really these are the people want to rail on the backups, and I have too. Like, we're sitting in the press box like, what are we watching here? But these guys are running scout team all week, and these are 3s and 4s at some positions, at many positions late in the game. So kind of is what it is. But yeah, excited to get the Will Johnson played 8 defensive snaps last week in the second quarter. I assume we'll see him a little bit more this week as they kind of rev him up. And Rod Moore, same thing. Sounds like Makari Page close as well after playing limited snaps in the first game. So once those guys are back, this defense could be scary. And already kind of is. We saw them unveiling some of the blitz stuff on Saturday, getting a lot of pressure there, even without the blitz. So they can do a lot of things. Again, it's UNLV, but you like what you see so far.